Welcome back, everyone, to Searching for Faith. If you're new here, I'm Tracy, and today we're going to talk all about Christian romance. So let's get started. Okay, y'all, so I love to read. I think I have shared that, fact with you guys probably multiple times. I am an avid reader. My primary favorite genre for reading is actually fantasy, which you guys have probably ascertained from me talking about the Chronicles of Narnia on a regular basis. So I'm definitely more of a fantasy reader. I also read some dystopian. It depends. The first book that I ever fell in love with in my entire life was the book The Giver by Lois Lowry. That was the book that ignited a love of reading in me. But I also have a special place in my heart for romance novels. I will say, as far as spice goes, I do lean towards less spice than more spice, but that doesn't mean that I haven't read my share of books that have some more spice in it. So I'll try to give you guys some spice ratings on some of these books, because some of them are going to be spicier than others. And I'm using spice because that's usually how people nowadays kind of rate books, is with little pepper symbols. So we're going to use our little peppers to give you guys a rating of the spice level of these authors on a general basis, because sometimes some books they write are going to be a little bit more spicier than others. It just kind of depends. But most of these writers, I'm going to be sharing with you guys today my top 10 favorite Christian romance writers, okay? Now, most of these are marketed as actual Christian romance. Some are marketed more as an inspirational writer or inspirational romance. So it's not marketed directly as Christian. So some of them I may not even know technically what their religious affiliation is or how they identify religiously. But they are, I guess, have a more hopeful, inspirational message, and maybe are cleaner in general. But yeah, so let's get started. Okay, y'all, so my first one is an oldie but a goodie, and it is going to be Janette Oak. She's the one that wrote the Love Comes Softly series. I don't know if she wrote the Wind Calls the Heart books too. I'm going to have to look that up. Did Janette Oak also write? Yeah, she also wrote the Wind Calls the Heart series. So if you're familiar with the Hallmark movie series of When Love Comes Softly, and then the TV series When Calls the Heart, they're not connected as far as I know. I think they're two separate, not worlds, but two different storylines. Then you are familiar with Janette Oak, and her books are really good. They are very Western though. They are old America, old West, 1800s. When you think of Little House on the Prairie kind of era, that's when the majority of her books are set. And like I said, she is an older author. She's been around for forever. I think When Calls the Heart was written in the early 80s, and I think When Love Comes Softly, I don't think it has When at the beginning, I think it's just Love Comes Softly, was written in the late 70s. So she's been around a long time. And I remember when we first read the Love Comes Softly series, I say we, me, my mom, and my sister all read it at the same time. And I think my cousin and my aunt also read it. And we were all just devouring the series and talking about it, enjoying it together. So I feel like Janette Oak is just a really solid, good. She was definitely a pulp writer. She was knocking those books out, getting books out. So she's written a lot of books, and I feel like her two best are definitely Love Comes Softly and When Calls the Heart, and that's probably why they were both made into movies and TV series. But she's written a lot of really good books. I've really only read, as far as the whole series, I don't even know if I finished the Love Comes Softly series. I know my sister and my mom did, but her books are really, really good, and I do recommend it at the very least reading the first several books of the Love Comes Softly series. It's really good, but she goes on and on. That Love Comes Softly series, like, keeps going for generations. But really good writer, really solid. If you love a good Western romance, she's your girl. I forgot to give you guys spice level. So Janette Oak is definitely just going to be a 1 pepper, maybe a half a pepper. Like, there's kissing sometimes, but like, it's very, very little spice going on. She's not getting into any kind of detail about relations or anything like that. Like, it is, spice level is at a minimum in Janette Oak books. If you would like to correct me on that, and there are any that she wrote that are spicier, let me know. But as far as I know, her books are extremely on the, like, very much extremely on the clean side. All right, so my second author that I'd like to talk to you about today, her name is Karen Whitemeyer, and I actually found her book initially. The first book I read by her was not Stealing the Preacher. It is Stealing the Preacher. I think it was called Stealing the Preacher was the first one I ever read by her. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the first one that I read. So cute. She's also a Christian Western romance writer. I initially found one of her very first books that I read, if y'all know what an Ollie's is, it's like, Ollie's is kind of like, I don't know if you have a Big Lots, and Ollie's are Big Lots, one of those like overstock stores where they get like overstock of things or like surplus things and sell them at a discount. And Ollie's particularly has a huge book section. And I'm like, if you love Amish romance, which I'm trying to think, is there any, I don't think I have any Amish romance. No, I have one. I have one Amish romance author. If you love Amish romance, there are hundreds and hundreds of Amish romance books at an Ollie's. But there's lots of Christian Western, lots of romance novels in general at an Ollie's. So I initially found Karen Whitemeyer at Ollie's. But that is not to say, like, I don't want you to think just because it was at an overstock store that means that it has anything to do with like the level of the writer or how good the writer is. Because I fell in love with Karen Whitemeyer and I recommended her to my sister and to my mom, and I'm sure my cousin and my aunt have also read them. But her books are so good. They are Christian Westerns. This is the one that I currently have on my shelf that I have not read yet. I found this one at a discount bookstore. But she definitely writes. Usually she'll have a series. I think the Stealing the Preacher one is like a series about brothers in the West. And I've read all of those books. And this one I picked up, I'm not sure. This one is the Ladies of Harper Station novel. I'm not sure what, I think it's the kind of thing where each book does kind of stand alone and you don't have to read them out of order. But they are like really good. They're pretty easy reads. Very, very clean. Definitely 1 or 1/2 pepper. Very clean reads. But so sweet and heartwarming. But also Christian. There usually is like they're obviously Christians in the books, or at least one person is, and usually somebody else like will come to Christ. But they are so good. So don't be like thrown off by the Western romance, because I feel like Amish romance, Western romance, those kinds of things kind of get thrown into like a Pulp Fiction or a overdone genre kind of pile, and that people don't take them as seriously. Unfortunately, I feel like that's the case with all romance. A lot of romance these days that's just not taken as seriously as a genre, book genre. But Karen Whitemeyer, I absolutely love her. Like I said, I can't remember the name of the series, but Stealing the Preacher was the first book I think I read. And that series of those brothers, I'll put what it is right here. It's so good. Like I said, minimal spice, but just very heartwarming, easy reads. Like if you want a good summer by the pool read, this is one of your books. Just love. I devour her books. They're so good. Me and my sister both have read so many of her books. I love them. All right, so the next author I'm going to mention is probably an obvious one, but it's going to be Beverly Lewis, another one of our either Western or Amish writers. Beverly Lewis has written so many books. Obviously, the most famous and my favorite series written by her is the Shunning series. It's called The Shunning, The Reckoning, and then Confession, I think, are the 3 books. But love the Shunning series, but she's written so many books. They're usually pretty easy reads, minimal spice, probably another half a pepper. Really, really good book. She does write a lot of Amish romance, a lot of Western romance, but she is a very good writer, very easy reads, but also, like, doesn't shy away from, like, hard topics either. So, yeah, I really appreciate a good Beverly Lewis book. It's actually been a while since I've read a Beverly Lewis book, but she's been around in the Christian romance genre for a very long time, and I feel like she's definitely, like, you know, all of, like, the first, Janette Oak, like I said, has had series made of her. The same thing with Beverly Lewis. I'm sure she's probably had other series made by Hallmark. It wouldn't surprise me. But another very good Christian romance author that I adore. Okay, number 4 is going to be the first spicy one on our list. Another obvious author that you would expect me to say, if you know anything about Christian romance, is obviously the one and only Francine Rivers. Obviously, a lot of people think, because it's like her magnum opus, that Redeeming Love may be the only book she's ever written. But it's not. She has written other books, and they are excellent. She is an amazing writer. I definitely feel like the best of the best of the best, like, is obviously Redeeming Love, and I still to this day feel like Redeeming Love is one of the best books ever written. And as far as... It's so hard, but as far as spiciness goes, I feel like I'm going to have to give her a 5 pepper. I don't want, like, I would never recommend something to you that is of an inappropriate adult nature. That would not be something that would be appropriate for any Christian person to read. So I would never recommend that kind of level saucy to you. Okay, so by giving you 5, it's more of kind of like a warning, because there's a lot of difficult topics, and there are some definitely spicy scenes and relations happening, and then there's just some really dark, difficult concepts I'm trying to figure out how to say this without getting demonetized, as well as not like, but I also want to make sure you're warned. Like, I feel like you just need to, like, read about what's in the book before you read it. You just need to be prepared. There are some really heavy, serious topics, things that happen to children. There is obviously, the girl is in slavery, essentially, before the guy comes and takes her away. There is some beautiful husband and wife relations that happen later on in the book that are beautiful and wholesome and good, but still saucy. So it's like I want to warn you that there is definitely spice. So as far as, I guess, Christian writers go, it is a full 5 peppers. And I'm also giving you those 5 peppers because there are some really dark, difficult concepts that you have to process when reading the book. So I need you to be mentally prepared for that as well. It's not an easy read as far as the things that they tackle in the book. It could be difficult, and trigger warning if you have had any experience with abuse or anything of that nature. This could be triggering to you. So it's just kind of like, I almost want to give it 5 peppers. It's just kind of like a trigger warning to people to prepare yourself mentally and spiritually before reading it. Okay. And I read it before I was married, but now I like almost wouldn't. I'm like, it's like reading like full on true Harlequin romance kind of novels. So like, it is very spicy. I almost want to put unmarried Christian women on their guard that if I could have chosen, I might have preferred to have read this book after I was married. So just be prepared. So that's why I'm giving it 5 peppers, y'all. Okay. All right. So the next Christian romance author I'm going to talk about is Denise Hunter. I am also going to give her just like 1 pepper. Pretty clean writer. I've only read like 2 books by her, but my sister loves Denise Hunter. She's read like all of her books. They're definitely kind of like, I feel like maybe like Nicholas Sparks S, but minus the spiciness of a Nicholas Sparks book, because they're kind of, a lot of them are set in like the South, like South Carolina kind of area, and like maybe like on the coastal region, kind of like that, you know, how all of Nicholas Sparks books I feel like are set in South Carolina. So she's kind of in that kind of like realm, and they're modern day books, so they're definitely about like modern day couples, and they're just really good, fun romances, just really good, lighthearted, easy reads romance, and definitely a nice, clean, easy read. So I kept saying easy, but they really are. They're like, it wouldn't take you very long to read it, wouldn't be very hard to read, but just like good, happy, wholesome, you know, lighthearted kind of modern romances. So definitely fun. I feel like some of her books may have been turned into Hallmark movies too, but I may be getting that wrong. But yeah, so good fun reads. I've only read a couple, but like I said, my sister like loves her books. All right, so my number 6 choice is going to be Julie Klassen. Her books aren't like in any way like in your face Christian, but they are really good, just wholesome romance. Now her genre is going to be more of a like Jane Austen-esque kind of genre, so like more of like Regency era England kind of books. I first fell in love with her because from books that I read by her, and then I introduced it to my sister, and then my sister started reading them because I love Jane Austen and I love the Brontes. So finding a good like Regency era book series, definitely giving her like half a pepper, because she's definitely fully set like in that Regency era, so it's gonna read kind of like the same level of spiciness that a Jane Austen book would have, but very well written, really detailed stories. Sometimes they're kind of like mysteries, so you're like trying to like figure something out. There's a lot of like what's the word, where what you think something isn't actually misdirections. Sometimes there's misdirection going on. Sometimes who you think is the good guy may not be the good guy, and vice versa. Some love triangles where you're not 100% sure who the person should end up with. Like I said, some mystery in some of the books. Definitely like kind of like underdog stories, like where maybe like the girl is like the maid, or the girl is like the gatekeeper's, I think in one book is even called the gatekeeper's daughter, but then, you know, falls in love with like a Mr. Darcy-esque kind of character. Really good, detailed, and like the stories aren't just surface level. Like she put a lot of like planning and research and all the things into her stories, and they're really, really well written and really good stories. I adore a Julie Klassen book. They are so good, and it just feeds that Jane Austen need inside of me for that kind of book. So like definitely like, hey, for instance, I feel like she's a good alternative to like if you are interested in reading Bridgerton, but you're nervous about the spice level of Bridgerton, because Bridgerton spice level is like a 10. It could be like 10 peppers for Bridgerton. And I've read the first 4, and then I kind of stopped. But and I haven't decided whether I'm going to keep reading them or not. Like I said, I'm not saying I've never read spicy books before. But if you're interested in Bridgerton, but you don't want that spice level, and that makes you nervous, and so you want that kind of story, or you want to get that like Regency era fix without the spice level, I highly recommend Julie Klassen's books. They're so good, so well done. Top tier, like writing level, like just really good, well written, really like inspirational, but also just like unique storylines. Like I said, I just can't say enough good things about Julie Klassen. Absolutely love her. 10 stars, but low spice level. So good option if you'd like that. Like I said, Regency era fix without the spice. She is an excellent choice. All right, our number 7 is going to be a new author that my sister got me into recently called Mary Jane Hathaway. She writes also modern day books that are more Southern, even with just the name Mary Jane Hathaway. You can just like imagine her with like a deep Southern accent, and her her characters are in the South. There's some I've read that I haven't loved, but a lot that I really have. She's also done some Jane Austen retellings, but in like modern day, like Charleston or something, that kind of like setting. But I really love her. My sister's read more of her books, but I really like them. Like I said, she's done some retellings. I love a good retelling of a fairy tale or a Jane Austen novel. So she's done a few Jane Austen story retellings. So she's done Pride and Prejudice, and I think she did Emma, and maybe she's done more, and I just haven't read them yet. But just in a modern day, like Southern setting. So definitely love them. All right, my number 8 pick is going to be Melanie Dickerson. I have like 3 of her books on my shelf that I haven't read yet. I absolutely love Melanie Dickerson. I can't remember who read her first. I'm pretty sure my sister read her first, and then my sister got me into her. But if you love fairy tale retellings, I forgot to rate Mary Jane Hathaway. Mary Jane Hathaway is probably maybe a 1 to 2 pepper. Let's give her a 1.5 pepper. I don't remember her having any like super saucy scenes, racy scenes in her books. But there is kissing for sure. But I'm trying to remember. I don't think she has anything like super racy in her books. So I'm going to go with like 1.5 peppers with her. So the next author is Melanie Dickerson, and she does fairy tale retellings, and then also just like books set in a fantasy world. So the 3 that I have right now is The Silent Songbird, and I'm trying to remember who this is. Oh, which fairy tale retelling is this one supposed to be? Let's see. I mean, she has a heavenly voice as trapped in a sinister betrothal until she embarks on a daring escape and makes brave Wesley Lewis. Let's see. I'm trying to think who would be the Songbird retelling. I'm not sure. I mean, and they don't all have to be retellings. She's also written books that aren't retellings, but this is the one I haven't read yet, The Silent Songbird. And then you have The Warrior Maiden, and I'm pretty sure this one is like a retelling of Mulan. Yeah, this is a Mulan retelling. So The Warrior Maiden. And then I also have The Golden Braid, which obviously is a Rapunzel retelling, which I have not read yet. But I've read several of her books. I know she did like kind of like a Robin Hood, but a girl. And then she did, I think she did Sleeping Beauty. But so I've read a few of hers. I'll put like the pictures of the ones that I know I've read. But she does fairy tale retellings, but then she also just does fantasy setting kinds of books, but they're definitely Christian. She's a Christian author. Spice level is probably like half a pepper again. Very, very clean. And just love her books. And as a fantasy girl, as someone who loves fantasy, to be able to find a good Christian fantasy writer is just like, it's just like perfect. It is just exactly everything that I want in a book. So I absolutely love her. Some of her books are series, but most of them are standalones. And yeah, love her books. So Melanie Dickerson, highly recommend. I think of those 8 that I just talked about, my absolute favorites that I go back and reread would be Karen Whitemeyer, Julie Klassen, and Melanie Dickerson. Those are like my 3 favorites. Okay. And my last favorite, I know I said 10, but I accidentally wrote one of the authors twice on my list. So we actually have a list of 9. So our number 9 pick is going to be more of a shameless plug because it is my sister. Her name is Melanie Tillman, and she is a writer. She has been a writer her entire life. I read this series that she wrote about, like, it was like a sci-fi series that she wrote when she was like a freshman in high school or something, and or maybe she was a little bit older than that, but it was about like a group of kids that were like there were aliens that were crash landed. And I know you're thinking that's a Roswell knockoff, but she actually wrote this before Roswell, so technically you could say Roswell copied her. I don't even know if she still has that written down somewhere. I'm like, part of me wants to tell her, hey, you should like legit write that sci-fi series. There's not enough sci-fi Christian authors out there either. But she wrote a series of books, and all 3 are out right now. Here they are right here. And they are so good. They are modern day Christian romances that are set in the Northeast, like coastal region of the United States, so like the New England area. I think it's like Connecticut. I think they're set in Connecticut. The first one is called What Hindered a Love. This one, spice level is definitely higher. Like, I feel like the spice level is probably maybe like a 3 pepper, which is going to be probably the highest that you get on on this list. But this one is really good. It's there's like the main girl, Chloe, is like came from foster care, was adopted older, had a lot of hurt and jadedness in her life. She had some church hurt, and just wasn't treated well, but she also made some bad decisions. And then so it's kind of like the story of her and her true love, and like finding her way through her brokenness to find faith in God. And so it is just so good. There is some like darker elements and themes in it, so kind of like it's actually been compared to Redeeming Love and review that was written. So it's very, very good, but there are going to be some like darker themes. Melanie does not shy away from the harder concepts. The second book is The One Who Sees Me, and all these girls are related. The second and the third book, the girls are sisters. The main girl in the first book is the cousin of the other 2 girls, the adopted cousin. The One Who Sees Me is about a girl who grows up with the expectation of being like, she's the eldest sibling, the expectation to be like perfect all the time and always have it together. But some difficult things happen to her in her life that she has a hard time dealing with. She struggles with things like anxiety and stuff. So it's definitely, so The One Who Sees Me is about like coming to terms with that need for perfection and being able to deal with your own demons and your own struggles and being able to give it to God and like all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like the themes in this one. And then the last one, oddly, is loosely, I'm gonna say loosely based on me. Kate in the second book is loosely based on my sister. This one is loosely based on me. This one's called Here in the Middle. Hannah in the third book is struggling with infertility. It also gives you a little bit of the background of her love story with her husband. And in the book they adopt, and so it's kind of about like their struggles with the adoption process, and the struggles with adopting, because they do adopt like an older child. But it's beautifully written. My sister is an amazing author. So these are the 3 books. I will link my sister's info below, Melanie Tillman. Hey y'all, so editing Tracy popping in here just to say that my sister did give me her spicy, steamy levels for how she labels her books. She gave her first book, the What Hindered Love, a 4 pepper rating. She gave book 2, The One Who Sees Me, a 3 pepper rating, and then she gave her third book, Here in the Middle, a 2 pepper rating. So just wanted to let y'all know what her ratings for her books were. I will link to all the books that I mentioned, all the authors I mentioned today below, and maybe link to like my favorite book from each author. But I will link my sister's like website. And she is definitely a good like resource for Christian, like if you love Christian writers, Christian romance, definitely check out my sister's like website and like her Goodreads and stuff, because she reads and devours way more Christian romance than I do, and has lots of good recommendations for romance. So those are my top 9 favorite Christian romance writers of today. Definitely kind of giving you like a mix of modern day fantasy, Western, at least one Amish romance, because I feel like in the Christian writing realm you cannot escape the Amish Christian romance. What is it about that? I feel like I kind of gave you like a broad, like mix of different genres. If you know of any good sci-fi Christian books, let me know in the comment section below. I know as far as sci-fi guys, the only sci-fi Christian series I know about is that one that C.S. Lewis wrote, but I'm not aware of any sci-fi romance Christian or sci-fi Christian romance that I'm aware of. But I kind of gave you a mix of fairy tale, Western, Old West, modern day, just kind of like a mix. And Melanie's books are modern day. I can't remember if I said that. Modern day, set in the New England coastal region. So definitely go check those out as well. Everything will be linked below. Let me know, what are your favorite Christian romance writers? I know another one that my sister reads is Tracy Peterson sometimes. I just haven't been able to get into her books. I am aware of Tracy Peterson. But let me know, like, what are your favorites in the comment section below. As a Christian reader, how are you on spice? Like, are you like none at all, or are you okay with a little? Let me know what you think about all of that in the comment section below. And if you like this particular video, if you love books, if you love romance, definitely give me that like button. And if you'd like to follow along with me on this spiritual journey to rediscover my faith in our Christian God and learn who God is, then we would love to welcome you to come along with us and join this family. So definitely hit the subscribe button as well. And don't forget that God has not forgotten you, and we are in this together. So let me know how I can pray for you in the comment section below. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.